So, you probably know that Nova Scotia produces wine, but did you know that the growth in the number of wineries has been 133% since 2005 alone? There are now 22 wineries. And Nova Scotia has the world's only stylistic appellation, which we're going to talk more about, called Tidal Bay. It's beautiful, beautiful wine. Did you know there are 90 growers and that Nova Scotia is Canada's coolest wine region? Not just cool as in, yes, you want to be there, but also ideal for growing crisp, fresh, refreshing wines. That's exactly what we're going to talk about with our guest tonight on the Sunday Sipper Club show. I'm Natalie McLean, editor of Canada's largest wine review site at nataliemclean.com, and we gather here every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern, that's Toronto, New York time, to talk to the most interesting people in the world of wine. Now, before I introduce my guest fully, I would love to know where you're logging in from tonight. I'll bet you there are a lot of people on mobile, from cottages and decks around. Such a beautiful weekend. Where are you logging in from? Tell me in the comments. And what's the weather like? It's beautiful here in Ottawa. Sunny, gorgeous. Hello, Anne in Halifax. And Beverly is here from SoCal. That's Southern California. All right. So guys, keep commenting and logging in. And I am going to also share with you a few things before we get going. So I wanted to let you know that if you would love to learn more about wine, you can register for a free online video wine class where I teach you how to taste wine like a pro. So it's just Natalie McLean /pro, and you can select your class time and save your seat right now. Also, I know you're going to enjoy this conversation. But as you know, for those who take 3 seconds to share the video, so hit the share button and make a comment as to why you're sharing it with your fans, your friends, your family. You could win a gift basket from Taste of Nova Scotia. So goodies from Nova Scotia. That's the prize that we will be drawing for next week based on everybody who has shared. Those of you who are live here tonight and those of you who are watching the replay. At the end of tonight, I'm going to announce the winner of last week. Well, it's been 2 weeks because we took a break for July 1st, but I'm going to announce the winner of the competition from 2 weeks ago, which is a couple of bottles of Rife Wineries wines from Ontario. But right now, hello, Louise Boudreau. She's on the a golf course in Kemptville. Thanks for joining us, Louise. Rochelle is here in Ottawa. Hello. Colleen Kilty, you're logging in from Canada, Ottawa. Jamel is in Toronto. And I know Ellen McDonald has joined us from Amherst, Nova Scotia. And some people's comments have already flipped off the screen. So keep logging in and telling me where are you logging in from tonight and what's the weather like there. I'd love to know. All right, folks. So tonight we are talking about Nova Scotia wines, and our guest is a certified sommelier and instructor of culinary and tourism studies at the Nova Scotia Community College, and she leads and has led hundreds of tastings of Nova Scotia wines for restaurant staff and around the province, as well as other educational seminars on behalf of Taste Nova Scotia through the support of the Department of Agriculture. And she joins me now live from her home in the Gaspereau Valley of Nova Scotia. Welcome to the Sunday Sipper Club, Amy Savory. Hello, Amy.
Hello, Natalie. Thank you for having me.
Oh, so glad you could join us. So excited. And as a Nova Scotia gal myself, my mom and dad are from Cape Breton, Bedak, Mabou. I am so excited to talk about our topic tonight. And I know you are a huge advocate and proponent for Nova Scotia wines. So,
absolutely.
All right. So before we dive into that, Amy, maybe you can tell me, was wine part of your family dinners growing up, or was it on the table, or how did you get introduced to wine?
No, wine was actually never on our table at family gatherings. It was the jug of milk.
Right.
Special occasions, we may have had the bottle of Pied d'Or come out, but definitely wine was never part of my life growing up. And it was really in university that I discovered it. I went to Acadia. And then the Grand Pré Winery is just being renovated in the late 90s.
Yeah.
And I knew I loved it, but I didn't know why.
Okay. All right. Sounds similar to my history as well. And it was more beer and whiskey, although I wasn't partaking of that when I was younger. But can you remember the first wine you tasted? Like the first wine that turned you on to wine? Even if it wasn't Nova Scotia wine, but that first memory of a great wine that really got you intrigued with wine.
Absolutely. Surprisingly, it was Nova Scotian.
Excellent.
And so I had just started working at Domaine de Grand Pré. This would have been back in 2000. So they were just doing their training. And Jörg, the winemaker, brought us down to the cellar and he poured us a glass of Muscat. And I remember just the florality and all of the aromatics. I was absolutely blown away by it. And I asked the very naive question, how do you get all that fruit in there? Like, do you ferment it with the pineapples and the lychees? And Jörg, the winemaker, very humbly told me that, no, that's just part of the grape. And it was at that point that I realized that there was so much to know and so much that I needed to learn and needed to taste to understand. I was absolutely blown away by that wine.
That's a great story. Absolutely. And you know, Amy, there's a learning point in there as well. We get all of these aromas that smell and taste like other fruit other than just the basic grape from which wine is made. But that's because, you know, the molecular structure of grape and wine can mimic those aromas and we get that complexity. It's why we have people like you leading tastings and people like me reviewing wines and not orange juice, as I have said in the past.
Exactly.
So that's fascinating. So what did you do then? You got intrigued with this wine. And what was your next step?
Well, so I worked at Grand Pré for a few weeks when they first opened, but I had dreams of being a marketer. And so I had taken business at university and I left I was at the Grand Pré, and after about 5 weeks, I got a job in marketing and I took it and I was miserable.
Oh,
I did not like it. And there was this pivotal point in my life where I realized that it's too short to be unhappy. And I felt that the wine was calling me back. And I called Hans Peter, the owner of Grand Pré, and I said, I'm not happy. I would love to come back. But the only position that they had open was a dishwasher. So I said, great, sign me up. I'm coming back to be a dishwasher.
You're a trooper.
Yeah. And you know, that's when I fell in love with the industry. I realized the back of the house and how it operates, and that's really kind of where I fell in love with wine. It's surrounded by people that were passionate, and we're making a go of it here in Nova Scotia and believed in it, and that's really where I fell in love with Nova Scotia wine and wine in general.
That's inspiring.
Yeah.
You'd do anything to get into the industry, including being a dishwasher. That's fantastic. Yeah. So Paul and Patty have joined us from Virginia. They are regulars. Welcome, folks. Stephen Andrews is here, and Peter Franis is here. And Andrea Shapiro is here. All right. So, Amy, maybe tell us a little bit about how important wine is to the Nova Scotia economy. Some surprising stats, especially when it comes to how much a bottle of Nova Scotia wine contributes to the economy versus a bottle that is foreign, like an import wine. Maybe give us some comparisons and surprising numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. Really surprisingly. And I think something that I feel really proud about every time I pop the cork of a bottle of Nova Scotia wine, that overall to our economy, a bottle of Nova Scotia wine on average contributes about $36.62. Compared to a bottle of international wine contributes about $1 to our overall economy. And so I always say that I'm an investor in this province. Every time I open a bottle, I'm doing it for the province to allow it to grow. There's a big important part about agriculture. Has always been the kind of important to Nova Scotia. And with wine now, it's a new type of agriculture that's just adding an extra value to our land, which is really exciting to see rural Nova Scotia prosper through the wine industry.
That's fantastic. And I just want to take a moment. We certainly have a lot of fans of Nova Scotia wine joining us here tonight, and the folks are coming in thick and fast. So I want to welcome, let me just go through them here. Scrolling down, Lori Sweet is here from Kingston, Ontario. And let's see, Heather McLean, hello from Halifax. Carl Jolly is here from Prince Edward County, and he was at the Lavender Festival, which I assume is in Nova Scotia. Francis is here from Ottawa. And another Francis Brown is from Stag Island, and it's sunny and 28 there. All right. Let's see. Stephen Andrews says, the only wine from Nova Scotia besides Benjamin Bridge that I know of is Youst. I think it's from Nova Scotia. You were right, Stephen. We're going to talk about other wines tonight so that we're going to get you right up to speed on 22 well, we're not going to go through all 22 wineries, but there are a lot of wines these days. All right, folks. So maybe that's an amazing number in stats in terms of how it contributes. And it's that way, Amy, across the board for all Canadian wines. And I'm sure any local region, the contribution to the local economies is very important. I mean, as I've said before, like wine is the most value added agricultural product we produce. It's the only one we put on the dinner table in its original packaging. We don't tag the beef. We don't put a little sticker on the strawberries, but we have wine on the dinner table. And the spin-off from tourism to restaurants to the whole supply chain is pretty profound. All right, so Amy, tell us a little bit about L'Acadie Blanc. It's a kind of special grape for Nova Scotia and for you personally. What is it about L'Acadie Blanc that's a bit of a signature for Nova Scotia?
Yes, I have a huge place in my heart for L'Acadie Blanc. And so it was actually an orphan from Ontario, from Vineland, that came here in the late 70s, early 80s. And the original pioneer, I say, of Nova Scotia wine industry, Roger Dial, was then operating the Grand Pré winery and got his hands on it and realized its potential of surviving our winters and producing an amazing diversity of wine. And it's him that we owe the name L'Acadie Blanc, paying homage to the Acadian culture that was deported right from below the vineyards of Grand Pré. And so there's not many places in the world that can say that they have a grape that's completely kind of a signature of themselves. And it's true for L'Acadie Blanc, what it does here in Nova Scotia. And I often call it the workhorse of our grapes, where it's used to make a single varietal white. It's used to make an unbelievable sparkling traditional method. It takes oak aging really, really lovely, and then we can also make it into other styles of wine. So it really is a primary blender of the tidal bay, and it really is a grape that we can truly say is Nova Scotian. And I think that's when you travel anywhere in the world, you want to connect with those kind of those grapes that are unique to that region. And I'm really proud to say that here in Nova Scotia we have that grape.
Yeah, absolutely. I haven't heard it being grown anywhere else, and yet I've tasted it in Nova Scotia and here at home in Ottawa, and it is unlike anything else. It's beautiful, it's fresh, it's crisp, it's not Riesling, it's not Gewürztraminer, it's its own creature, and you really have to try it to really know what it is.
Absolutely.
So good segue there, Amy, because Francis is asking, can you elaborate on the Tidal Bay appellation? So we've got a lot of different wineries in Nova Scotia labeling, producing a Tidal Bay. Here's Grand Pré. That was Lightfoot that I just had up there. And I've got Planter's Ridge here. I've got a number of them here. But maybe you could tell us about Tidal Bay and what that's all about.
Absolutely. What a truly remarkable success it's been for Nova Scotia in terms of being a wine that truly captures our climate in terms of bright and lively and those lovely aromatics that our cool evenings give us, but then naturally fits within the food that we're already known for. It's the perfect partner to go with it. And I love the new branding of the Winery Association. They've just branded Tidal Bay as one story, many authors. And so there is very strict kind of standards and regulations that guide the winemaker. Isn't that awesome?
I love that. As a writer, I love that. One story, many authors. That's poetic. I love that.
Yeah, it really is. And so it gives you that sense that the winemaker has the really stringent standards of which they have to make the wine and what grapes they can use to make the wine. But it never inhibits their creative spirit. So they can interpret that story and develop the character of the wine as they see fit. And so this year's vintage, 2017, we have 11 different title bays from 11 different producers and wineries. And although they all fit in terms of that spectrum of light and bright and crisp and slightly aromatic, they all have their own unique personality, which is, I think, really special about the program. So stylistically it fits, but there's an expression of each individual winery and their little place in Nova Scotia that they can express through the wine.
Absolutely. I want to welcome Randy. Sorry, Randy, if I don't get your last name right here. Huzenga, I believe, has joined us. And Nicole Tracy Lewis has joined us to learn more about Nova Scotia wine. She's excited. And folks, I just want to take a moment because I forget to do this as our conversation goes on. But please take a moment to share. I'm sure you know friends and family who would love to learn more about Nova Scotia wines, whether they can join us right now or they can catch the replay and comment as to why they might enjoy it. And we will be drawing for a gift basket of Nova Scotia goodies, food gifts, for those who do take a moment to share and comment. And one more note that if you do want to take an online video class, how to taste wine like a pro, go to nataliemclean.com/pro, and it's free. All right. So now with Tidal Bay, Amy, are there set number or specific grapes that can be blended? Is it a choice? How does it work?
So it's a 3-tier system.
Okay.
And so there is the 4 primary grapes that kind of make up the majority of the blend. So 51% of the wine needs to be made from either Lac-Qui Blanc, Seyval Blanc, Vidal Blanc, or Geisenheim 318.
They're all very aromatic white grapes.
Yes, yeah. Absolutely, and then have a structure of their own, and then so 51% of the blend needs to be made from those 4 grapes, and then there's a secondary tier where the majority of the grapes are. So you'll see vinifera, in there, anything from Chardonnay and Riesling. You'll see other French American hybrids in that secondary. And no more than 49% of the blend can be made from that position of the secondary varieties. And then the tertiary varieties are those really aromatic grapes. So we're talking like Muscat Arsenal or New York Muscat, Pearl de Sasba. And so those grapes can't be made up of any more than 15% of the blend to ensure that it's not overly aromatic, that it still expresses itself of the place. And so the winemaker really has this really creative freedom to kind of play with those grape varieties. Now, some winemakers will choose to use the same grapes every year. So they have their signature kind of blends, and they use those grapes every year. Where other winemakers will kind of play depending on what the vintage kind of created, and then will stylistic the wine depending on that. So it's really neat to kind of look through the blends of the different wineries to see how varied they are, but how they can still nail that stylistic component of light, bright, crisp, and aromatic.
That signature, that one story, many authors.
Exactly,
yeah. It reminds me a little bit of Châteauneuf du Pape, where you can have up to 13 grapes in the blend. Of course, completely different. That's over in the Rhone Valley, France. But that idea that you can have this whole palette of many grapes to create that consistent sort of signature that you want for Tidal Bay.
Absolutely, yeah.
And is there a limit of alcohol level that can be in these wines?
Yes, so they do, all the standards limit the maximum alcohol level. So we want to keep it light, and so Tidal Bays can't have any more than 11% alcohol to ensure that they stay light and vibrant. And then there's also parameters around the minimum amount of total acidity that the wine needs to have, as well as the maximum amount of residual sugar. So they're ensuring that balance of brightness in the wine.
That's fantastic. Wow, that's interesting. And it was Peter Gamble who who created this. Peter Gamble, just for a bit of background, if anybody's not in the wine industry, which I'm sure the majority of are not, but he's married to Anne Sperling, famous winemaker here in Ontario, but she has her own vineyards as well in BC, Sperling Vineyards, Southbrook in Ontario. I know she's consulted to, and she and her husband, Peter Gamble, to Benjamin Bridge and I think Blomidon, and they have an Argentina vineyard. So anyway, Peter Gamble, was he the one who came up with the idea?
He kind of, back in around 2009, Benjamin Bridge was creating a white blend called Vero. And Peter was consulting for Benjamin Bridge at the time. And he said, this is the style of wine your region needs to concentrate on. It was, just everything that Tidal Bay was. So he kind of brought the idea and pitched it to the Winery Association, which we benefit here in Nova Scotia that we're small and fairly collaborative. So being small, we're a little bit more nimble, that the Winery Association absolutely grabbed a hold of the idea and said, we could totally work with this. We can build standards. We can make something that's truly Nova Scotia in a glass.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love that, Nova Scotia in a glass. And I want to welcome Linda Watts has joined us, and Roger Koffel says, we were wonderfully surprised by Youst when we visited last summer. That's awesome. Louise Boudreau is now, so we'll return to Tidal Bay when we taste some wines here, folks. But Louise Boudreau has an interesting question. Are there any organic wines in Nova Scotia, Amy?
Absolutely. So Lacadie Vineyards was our first certified organic winery in Nova Scotia, an exceptional little place who really specializes in traditional method sparkling wines. And he produced the first traditional method sparkling wine for Nova Scotia in the 2006 vintage of the Lacadie Brut. Just an exceptional spot who really connected with his land and his soil. And I think the wisest words he ever said to me was, I asked him, well, why did you go organic? And he said, well, I'm raising my children on this farm. I want to make sure that, and it really kind of connects you back to the land. Absolutely. So we also have Lightfoot and Wolfville, who is organic with some of their wines. And also practicing biodynamic farming practices.
Oh, I know. And, some of their labels, I'm going to just turn around and get one of these bottles here. They're beautiful, but they symbolize the biodynamic, there's elements of the biodynamic farming and viticulture in the label, I believe. You probably, you would know more about this than I do, but gorgeous.
Yeah. Absolutely. So every symbol in there signifies something about their particular vineyard and that particular variety. Absolutely stunning.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think many of us would find it hard to believe that you can do organic and biodynamic in Nova Scotia where the conditions are more challenging. It is Canada's coolest region by a degree or something like that versus Ontario and BC. So how are these folks doing this?
It's, you know what, I think that's what I love about our industry. I often say we're small, right? At 22 wineries, we're really small. We're very small on a Canadian scale, but it's the risk taking and it's the excitement and the passion and the innovation for connecting with the place to produce really wines that are distinctive of who we are. And I often find that that's what really makes us unique. That being young. We really don't have a lot of rules and a lot of boundaries, and so folks are just kind of playing with it and seeing how it works out. And so far, I would say it's been working out pretty great for us.
Yeah, it's going well so far. So far, so good. Anne Walk asks, where in Toronto can we find Nova Scotia wines?
And being small, we don't ask for a lot right now, but I know that at the LCBO, you can certainly find some of the Benjamin Bridge products. So
Nova 7, there we go. I know that just came out in Vintage's LCBO. Yeah, and that's got national distribution, I believe. One of the wines that does have national distribution. So that's there.
Canada.
Yeah. And go ahead.
Yeah, so you can find a few of those products. So of course, I think that we would love to bring more to the bring more than a market for sure.
Absolutely. And that goes into, Anne, the whole Free My Grapes movement that the Canadian Vintners Association, CVA, is promoting right now. So we are, they've reached out to writers like me to help promote this. And I am such an advocate because I would love to order more Nova Scotia wines from where I grew up to my doorstep here in Ontario. But of course we can't. The federal government has legalized it, not the provincial governments. So if you go to freemygrapes.ca, add your voice. It's a quick little thing that will go off to your local elected representative to tell him or her that it's important. And I think especially to small wineries like those in Nova Scotia, but there's all kinds across the country, in Ontario, everywhere, they don't have the volume to get into the big liquor stores. And so this direct to consumer channel is really vital for their growth and their sustainability. So anyway, another little soapbox moment, but I think it's really important.
It is.
So let me just look at these. These are coming in quick, which is great. Carl Jolie asks, Amy, where are the 90 growers located in Nova Scotia? So we have 22 wineries, 90 growers, grape growers, providing grapes to those wineries. Are they dispersed, or are they mainly concentrated in the Annapolis Valley area?
They're actually dispersed throughout rural Nova Scotia, and so we have about 7 identifiable grape growing regions in Nova Scotia. Of course, the concentration are certainly held here in the Annapolis Valley, kind of being the heart of the industry. But we have about, right now, it's not going to seem a lot to Ontario and BC standards, but we have about 1,000 acres of land under vine. So still fairly small. And a lot of those grape growers are located, yes, here in the Annapolis Valley, but the Annapolis Valley can be quite large by parameters, from like Windsor down to Digby. There's a great concentration. And then we have grape growers in Annapolis, Antigonish County, and grape growers in the Tatamagouche, the Malgache Peninsula. So they are quite scattered. And I think it's the Department of Agriculture recently published a stat that said for every acre of grapes that we can get planted in Nova Scotia, it creates the equivalent of one full-time job.
Wow.
Yeah, and for me, being a rural Nova Scotian girl, that makes me really proud, because I know that those are close to 1,000 jobs that 20 years ago didn't exist, and most of those are in rural places throughout the province,
where it's tougher to find jobs as opposed to having to move to the city where the cost of living is higher. So that's really important.
Yeah, it's really great.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I heard somewhere recently, and you don't have to confirm this, Amy, but I was listening to a podcast or reading something, and the person was saying that there is more potential land that can be planted for vine grapes or wine grapes in Nova Scotia than any other province in Canada. So the potential for this province is huge in terms of untapped plantings that could still be done in the province. So that's pretty exciting in terms of just the trajectory that Nova Scotia wines are on and where it's all going.
It's true. We had last year, 2017, was our largest planting yet through the Department of Agriculture. They put a vineyard expansion program in place, and we saw 260 acres be planted just last year alone in 2017.
Wow, that is fantastic. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. All right. So, and let me just scroll down here as the comments are still coming on. Okay, yes, Carl was asking on Anne's comment, can we order online? So let me just say, as someone who doesn't own a winery and whatever, I know people do order directly from wineries. It's just not legal at a provincial level, and which is just silly. So contact the wineries and make an arrangement to ship those glass fragile boxes. That's all I can say, okay? Take a hint. But still, people do that. They regularly do that, and many wineries make a point of making it public too. So I totally support that. Soapbox moment, says Roger. Yes, I'll try to stay off it, Roger. David has joined us from Ontario. Anna Pakula, where are you logging in from, Anna? And if you're just joining us, folks, please post, where are you logging in from? I love to know where you're coming from and what's the weather like tonight. It's beautiful here in Ottawa. All right, let me just go up here. And Brad McLeod, Brad, where are you from, is asking about the reds. So talk to us about red wines now, I should say, one of the stats you sent me, Amy, is that 60% of wines produced in Nova Scotia are white or sparkling, presumably because of the cool climate. But how does Nova Scotia handle reds, and which reds?
Absolutely. So yeah, we can't forget, even though the majority of the wine that we produce is white and sparkling, that we still make exceptional reds. So right now the Pinot Noirs that are being released are really beautiful. We only have a handful of the producers producing Pinots, but they're gorgeous in a red table style. The Lightfoot and Wolfville SCN, as an example, is pretty stellar. But I think where we really shine is certainly with our blended reds. And the winemakers, once again, are coming in and playing a really important role in terms of really creative winemaking styles. So a lot are playing with Ripasso style reds. So drying the grapes to concentrate those sugars to get a little bit more body. We even have one producer, Luckett Vineyards here in the Valley, that is actually burying the blended red in the ground in oak, in barrels, 8 feet under, to get this exceptional kind of complexity that kind of really is wonderful. And so a lot
are they just burying it in the ground, or is the cellar down that low?
No, they're actually burying the barrels in the ground.
Really?
And putting the wine in the barrel, and it stays about 24 months underground, and then they siphon it off, and it's exceptional. They do a buried white that is 100% Lacadie. That it's unbelievable how it changes Lacadie.
Is it earthy?
It is a little earthy.
Okay, just curious. Luckett is a great winery to visit. All of them are, but Luckett, of course, that's Pete's Fertique in Halifax, the artisanal grocery store. But if you go in the middle of their vineyards, they've got this British phone box, and I think you still can make a phone call anywhere in the world at no charge. But it's this red British in the phone box in the middle of vineyards. It's so iconic. It's Instagram worthy for sure.
Yeah, definitely. It's I mean, with the most stunning view of the Bay of Fundy and Blomidon. And it's funny, when you go there, they can't grow grass in front of the phone booth because so many people stop to get their picture taken there. They just can't keep the grass.
It's great.
Going.
It is so much fun. So they bury their wines. Okay. Yeah, and so they make a lot of robust reds. What other kinds of reds are being made? You mentioned Pinot Noir, which is on the lighter style, but what other reds are popular, being planted right now in Nova Scotia?
So we're really seeing, so we see a lot of those kind of North American hybrids taking the front road here. So Leon Milot and Marshall Foch, Baco Noir is a beautiful red producer for us. And we've even had with that vineyard expansion, some of the wineries are now putting Gamay in, which I'm super excited about, and Cabernet Franc as well. So we're kind of pushing boundaries and pushing the limits, which I think you need to do as a wine region. All great wines come from the edge of possibility, and we're really trying to learn that here as we're new with new red grape varieties.
Absolutely. And there were a lot of smiley faces for that. So getting lots of reaction. Brad McLeod says, I'd ask about reds, but I just opened a Benjamin Bridge Tidal Bay. Brad and Rhonda, they're in Halifax. So yeah, there's an amazing amount. And of course, you said hybrids. And for people who aren't familiar with what that means, it's a cross between two grapes, often that produces a more winter hardy, cool climate vine that can survive the temperature dips that happen in regions like Nova Scotia, but across Canada as well. Baco Noir is also very popular in Ontario. It's a beautiful, full-bodied red wine. All right. So let me get back to, I've gotten totally off track, which is great, on the questions here. Maybe talk to us a little bit, Amy, about maybe the biggest misconception that people have about Nova Scotia wines. I know you've addressed some of this through our chat so far, but is there something you'd like to address now that is often a mistake when it comes to Nova Scotia wines?
Sure. I think, it's a great question that I think leads right into my comments just previously about the grape varieties, and that, we know that 80% of the world's wines are made from about 20 different grape varieties. And those are really grapes that we can get comfortable with and we can really understand and we can really get to know. But I would say that we need to also understand other grape varieties like Lac-Qui Blanc or Leon Milo or Chez Roibe, right? Like there's so many other grape varieties to try. And I think that although we're now growing Chardonnay and Riesling and Pinot Noir, we've got so many wonderful varieties like this beautiful Cayuga from Cape Breton.
Oh, yes. Cape Breton, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And Cayuga is the grape, right?
Yes, it's the grape, yeah. And I think it's to be comfortable trying a grape variety that you don't know, because you never know what kind of new flavors and what new experiences it may bring. And so I think that here in Nova Scotia, we have, about 70 different grape varieties planted. Wow. And we still kind of understand who we are, that there's so many wonderful new grape varieties to understand and get connected with.
So many grapes. Wow, that is amazing. Lots of experimentation, I'll bet, going on.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. So let me just come back here because we had some good questions here that are flying off the screen. Dave Head said he's tasted any Bear River made by the new owners. Bear River, that must be a winery. Amy, is that right?
Yes, yes. It's it's a winery. So tucked in, just kind of inland from Digby. Okay. And they just went through new ownership. Now, I haven't tried any of the new wines under the new producers, but it's a beautiful area in Bear River. It's very undulating hills, and I have once heard it referred to as Little Switzerland, like. Lots of really neat little kind of bowls of slopes, and so there's quite a few grape growers down there as well in Bear River. It's an exciting little region to keep our eyes on for sure.
Okay, great, awesome. And Louise Boudreau has just taken action. She said she sent a letter through freemygrapes.ca. Easy way to communicate the message in Ontario. That sends it to our local elected representatives that says. Excellent. Get with the post-prohibition times, folks.
That's wonderful.
So if you missed that and you're just tuning in right now, you can go to freemygrapes.ca, and it is so simple. They've drafted the letter, and you just sign it and just says, hey, I'd love to be able to order wine from anywhere in the country. Let's get with it. Brad McLeod says, what should we expect this year, this vintage, regarding the heavy frost damage? I read about that. My heart just broke. Tell us about what happened in the spring. There was an early frost, or it was more recent than even spring, right?
It was, so I guess, uncharted territory for us, being new as well. And so beginning of June, we came off of a weekend of beautiful, hot, humid weather. And so the grapes had just budded out and had pushed quite strong. And then Sunday evening into Monday morning, it went down to -4. Oh. And just heartbreaking. And so the positive thing is right now, we just have that heat wave. The secondary buds have flourished. Oh, and good. The vineyards look great.
Happily ever after, yay.
Yeah, and so of course we're going to expect lower crops this year for sure. Mm-hmm. But if there's anything about Nova Scotians, we're resilient because of weather.
Yes.
And we'll fight through it. And I think if there's one positive that came out of it, Natalie, is that I think it connected people back that wine is agriculture. That wine is just purely farmed, like every other crop that we put on the table. And so it makes you kind of take a moment and step back and reflect on that although it may be in a beautiful fancy bottle on the table, that it was just farmed on our land like every other agricultural product. And so everybody's remaining positive here. And I think that we're going to see certainly a little dip in production, but
Sure.
we'll get through it. We'll learn from it for sure.
That's great. Well, there's some parallels there with the California wildfires. They found that they came together as an industry, supporting each other. Suffering for vines, suffering for people. Sometimes it makes us better. Not that we want to invite that anytime soon, but
Right.
yeah, no, it's something. And I'm so glad to hear that the bud break, the secondary bud break, is going well because, sometimes those tough years can really prove the mettle of the winemakers, and the yields are low. So sometimes it actually produces some of the most spectacular wines. The volume may be lower than usual, but the wines become benchmark wines. So there is a silver lining, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Okay, and Francis has just signed up for Free My Grapes. We're starting a movement here.
Yay!
That's great, Francis. And folks, just take a moment to share this video. Comment on why you're enjoying it. And we will be drawing for a gift basket of Nova Scotia artisanal foods next week. So you can do that tonight or if you're watching the replay. All right, so now let me not run out of time here. It's already almost quarter to the hour. I can't believe how fast this has gone. But Amy, you and I have the same wines in front of us, so let's taste before we run out of time. I've got I'm trying to figure out the order here, but I've got the Lightfoot Ancien Etienne Chardonnay with the wild ferment.
Yeah,
I think you do too.
I do.
Beautiful Chardonnay. I was there a couple weeks ago at this winery. Had a great tasting with Emily in the tasting room.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, she's a star. And so let's give this a taste because the wines at Lightfoot and Wolfville blew me away. I mean,
yeah.
The winery is only 9 months old, but I know they have to be using grapes that are more mature, like the vines are more mature. Right out of the gate, they won a lot of the awards at the Atlantic Canada Wine Awards. And they are, as you said earlier, the first biodynamic winery in the province. Amazing wines. So let us tell us about this Chardonnay. Like, what are your impressions and anything you know about it? Beautiful.
Simply stunning, stunning wine. And so just that beautiful kind of kiss of oak that's beautifully integrated with that cool climate Chardonnay expression. Has lots of, it certainly has lots of complexity and layers and elegance with that brilliant Nova Scotian
acidity.
Just,
sizzles. Yeah, absolutely. It's beautiful. And it has, so it's buttery and rich, but not heavy. I can imagine, my mind keeps going to lobster. Steamed lobster, melting butter.
Yes.
Beach, we're done.
Perfect. Yeah, perfect pairing right there.
Absolutely. It's such a gorgeous wine. I mean, I could go on and on, but it's a beautiful wine.
And I think this has potential I've got a number of bottles down in my cellar. I'm just really excited to see how it kind of progresses and ages.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I don't have this one chilled down, so I'm not going to open it because that would be explosive. But I also love their bubbly. I was tasting that in the tasting room too. It's the traditional method that they use in Champagne, and it is so gorgeous.
So beautiful. And that particular wine just won Wine of the Year at those Atlantic Wine Championships.
Oh, wow. I'm going to put that in the fridge tonight then.
Yay.
That's great. Okay, so let's make sure we cover some of these others that we have here. How about the Riesling from Grand Pré? They've just come out with a new label here, nice and clean and crisp like the wine.
Exactly. Now, I have the older vintage with me.
Okay, good.
But Riesling is fairly new for us here in Nova Scotia. And Jörg Stutz, the winemaker at Grand Pré, I like to call him the king of Riesling here in the Valley.
Excellent.
He has a precision with this grape that the wine always delivers in intensity, in that brilliance, the racy kind of Nova Scotia acidity.
That is so good.
Yeah, lush fruit and like such an exceptional, versatile wine. This is one that kind of I think is a go-to on any table. It would stand up to so many dishes and to so many different taste preferences and profiles.
Absolutely. From seafood to veal to poultry to just about everything. And I met my aunt, Helena, for lunch at Domaine de Grand Pré, their
Oh,
Le Caveau restaurant, which is outstanding. The chef there, amazing. And all the other, like I asked a few wineries even, where should I go for dinner, lunch? And they
yeah,
recommend this, very collegial. And
yeah.
the restaurant is lovely.
Yeah, a beautiful setting on the pergola on a summer's
It
day. I think,
is.
yeah, one thing that's special, I think, about our Nova Scotia wineries is the visitor experience. No matter
Yeah,
which winery you go to, you're going to be welcomed with that true, genuine Nova Scotia hospitality, and just
absolutely.
so thrilled to have you there to share it with. Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful region, like with the restaurants, everything, like the gorgeous landscapes, the Bay of Fundy, which is the highest tides in the world. Pretty neat. Louise Boudreau is saying, Amy is an amazing presenter. Thank you and cheers.
Oh,
So you're
thank
getting your
you.
own fan club going here. And what was I going to? Oh, she's also asking if there's any ice wine in Nova Scotia.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, good. Yeah, I would
Yeah,
expect. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So a number of producers produce beautiful ice wines that traditionally the Vidal grape kind of shines in that category for us as it does in Ontario as well. But really there's interesting ice wines made from the Ortega grape as well as the New York Muscat grape makes intriguing ice wines here. I once had probably the most brilliant words of advice ever from a gentleman when I was working at Le Caveau, the restaurant at Grand Pré. I offered him dessert, and he said to me, "My dear, if God intended us to eat dessert, he wouldn't have invented fermentation. Have a glass of ice wine."
That's great.
And
That's
I think it's
awesome.
brilliant advice that our ice wines are wonderful and that we need to pop the cork more often at the end of the meal
Absolutely.
to replace the
Absolutely.
dessert.
We forget or we get too full or whatever. And that's the one from
Yeah,
Lightfoot, but that's made from Vidal. Beautiful label.
beautiful.
And the Ortega grape from Domaine de Grand Pré is a lovely dry table wine.
Yes.
All right. Carl Jolie says, Amy, you are so right. Grape growing wineries is farming first and foremost. We know that in Prince Edward County, Ontario. What I've heard of, I've heard winemaking is the phrase is fancied up farming,
Ah,
which
I
I
love
like. It's
it.
like, yes, you got rhinestones on your overalls. All right. But that's basically what it is. You are really dependent on Mother Nature and the cycles and everything else. So you can do all the market research and focus groups and whatever else you want to do. But in the end, it's down to an agricultural product and Mother Nature in the end.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So what else have we got here? We've done, what was the other one? There's Avondale Sky, which is Lady Slipper, which is a lovely flower in Nova Scotia. This is a rosé made from, do you know the grape here?
Yep, so it is Leon Milo and Marquette. Yeah.
Okay.
Uh, so two red grapes,
Yeah.
and which gives it that beautiful like ruby slipper color. It's just gorgeous.
Gorgeous, isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah. And
absolutely.
Avondale Sky being just an exceptional winery to visit. Speaking of
It is.
agriculture, these past the pastoral hills, and they kind of made headlines when they built their winery by instead of building a new building, bought a church at a neighboring community for $1, and then spent all the money floating it down the Avon River because it was too wide to go on the roads. So they got a barge and they floated the church from
Really?
Walden, yeah, to there. And so just stunning to see the video of this church coming down the water to
That's fantastic.
finally lay to rest at the winery.
I had no idea. I visited there about 2 weeks ago.
Oh,
Lovely, and the stained glass and everything else. It's a gorgeous little winery, and I had no idea. So I'll look for that
yeah.
video when we're done.
Yeah. I think it's probably the only tasting room that has the pulpit is the tasting bar.
Amen.
Amen.
May the spirit be with you. Yes. Oh, that's pretty. Nice and light. Cherry berry. Good
Yeah.
acidity again. And acidity is our friend when it comes to wine. It's like salt to food, brings forward flavor. And
Yeah.
it's making my mouth water so much.
Yeah. It's just seriously drinkable.
It's seriously drinkable. Absolutely. So good. I think we have one more that we wanted to taste together, I believe. No, we've got two. We've got
Oh, yeah.
I skipped over, sorry, rosé, but that's okay. They're all nice and light whites. The Planters Ridge, which is a tidal bay,
Yeah.
right there. And Planters Ridge, new to me. I mean, on my radar, won a lot of awards at the Atlantic Canada Wine Awards as well. Beautiful, beautiful expression of the tidal bay. Not cloying, not sweet, floral, but not over the top.
Yeah.
What else can you tell us
Beautiful.
about this one? Yeah.
Yeah. Just beautifully balanced. And so an exceptional little vineyard, very small.
Mm-hmm.
And they've taken the old heritage of the farming and renovated a 150-year-old barn, which was farmed for 8 generations, I think 7 or 8 generations in
Wow.
Port Williams, right along the Wellington Dikes. And really an interesting winery, kind of trying out different grape varieties. So in this blend of Tidal Bay, you'll see some of the Minnesota grape varieties taking a role here with Frontenac Blanc and Frontenac Gris. And it really gives you those beautiful aromatics that you were talking about.
So
It's still,
Minnesota. So from the state of Minnesota, where they were originally planted or grafted or made into a
yeah,
hybrid.
that's
It's
right.
beautiful.
It is beautiful.
So if you like Viognier or Gewürztraminer or anything like that, this is lovely, floral, but again, not too over the top. Just nice. I mean, I could imagine mild to medium curries and
Yeah.
spices, but also just fresh seafood, all kinds of great
Yeah,
combos. I mean, really, very flexible.
absolutely. Definitely. Yeah.
Um, And so, let's see. Louise is asking, is the industry organized for winery tours and accommodations? Absolutely. I was there 2 weeks ago, Louise. I mean, there's just all kinds of things you can do and tours. Is there anything else you want to add, Amy? I mean, you're built for tourism in the Annapolis Valley.
Um, And the wineries, especially here in the Annapolis Valley, being so concentrated, all kind of within 5 kilometers, we have this wonderful called the Magic Winery Bus, which actually just launched in Ontario at 20 Bench.
Okay.
20,
30,
and so,
maybe 30 bench?
or 20 Mile, perhaps. It just launched last weekend in
Okay.
one particular wine region where Megalomaniac is.
Yes, yes. Okay, I know that one.
Yeah?
Yeah, that winery.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Or
And so,
2027, maybe. Yeah.
okay. Yeah, and it's a hop on, hop off, a double
Okay.
decker in a shell bus, and it
Okay.
picks you up in Wolfville, which is the main town here in the valley, and it drives you to the wineries, and you can spend as much time as you like, and then hop on. So it's a really great tourism experience that really gives people that availability to see many wineries without having to drive.
Fantastic. I love
Yeah,
that.
and yeah, lots of accommodations, and that's the thing about our province. We're fairly small, and so the Winery Association states that no matter what vineyard you're in Nova Scotia, you're never more than 20 kilometers from the ocean.
Huh. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Beautiful
yeah,
with all the beach walking and everything else. All
absolutely.
right. We are 8 minutes to the hour, so we are going to taste
Yeah.
Benjamin Bridge before we run out of time. The Nova
Yes.
7, which is the one we can find most easily. Nova 7. And this one, no, not this particular wine, but this winery got listed in Gordon Ramsay's restaurant in London, England, which is like 3-star Michelin. And he's the one, of course, on the Food Network. Kind of a picky guy when it comes to food and wine. And yet Benjamin Bridge got on the restaurant list over there in London, UK. Pretty amazing.
Pretty exciting. I often
Yeah.
have said that we'll know we've arrived on the wine scene here in Nova Scotia when our wines are put on the list of where our seafoods are already exported to.
Ah,
Um,
I like that. Yeah.
yeah, it's a natural kind of like what grows together goes together. And we know we export so much seafood, which was just thrilling to see a Nova Scotia wine among some of the finest champagnes in the world
Mm-hmm.
on a three-star Michelin. And then just the producers being so Nova Scotian, really crediting not themselves, but the climate and the Bay of Fundy for
Right.
the success, which is really kind of, I think, explains who we are here in Nova Scotia for sure.
That's a great summary. So, Amy, I could talk another hour or two, but what's the best website for people to find out more about Nova Scotia wines?
Absolutely. The Winery Association of Nova Scotia has, so it's a membership-based association. So it has a number of the wineries located on it.
Yep.
As well as you could check out tasteofnovascotia.com. And it's a membership-based organization as well. That is all food related and producers, so producers and producers. And so you can find more information from wineries there as well.
Awesome. And we'll post those links in Facebook and also on the blog post that we created for this chat. So make sure that people can connect and find out more about Nova Scotia wineries. You are an excellent ambassador of Nova Scotia wines, Amy. Oh. We really appreciate your time tonight. Great overview. Again, I didn't get to half my questions, which is a tribute to you. So thank you so very much for spending your time with us. Okay. All right. Okay, so I will say goodnight to you, Amy. Folks, hang on. I've got a couple of announcements before we wrap up tonight. So goodbye, Amy, and good luck. And we'll talk again soon. Okay.
Look forward to it. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye. All right, folks. I hope you enjoyed that. I think that was so informative. Lisa Oli, hi. Thanks for this. Excellent. Kathy Fleet joined. You know, if you're just joining us, you can watch the replay, of course, folks. So no worries there. Anne says, Amy, you are a wonderful ambassador for Nova Scotia. Alan Cameron, sorry if I missed the answer, but are these Nova Scotia wines available locally at the LCBO? Natalie, love how you're showing your knowledge of Nova Scotia and its terroir. Thank you, Alan. And yes, I did answer it earlier. You can get the Benjamin Bridge that we were tasting. That just came out in the LCBO, Alan. And a number of others. You can call up the wineries and get them to ship to you directly. Be a rebel. I am going to invite you all to be rebels because you can do that. All right. Patty and Paul and Beverly and Stephen, my regulars, Colleen. Excellent. Glad you all enjoyed it. Okay, folks. So I need to do a few things tonight before we wrap up here. First off, not last call, but I have posted new class times for my free online wine video course, How to Taste Wine Like a Pro. So if you would like to join me in that class, there are new class times posted, and you can choose the one that works for you at nataliemclean.com/pro. Last chance as well to share this video, whether you're here live with me tonight or watching the replay. That will qualify you to win a gift basket of Nova Scotia artisanal foods. Let your friends and family know why you're sharing it. That always helps. I would love to know what you thought was the most interesting point that you learned tonight. I really love finding out what you guys learned that was surprising. Next week's guest is Joel Gott, winemaker from California. Joel Gott Wines, superb wines, really fabulous. And we need to, David Harmon is saying, great show. Would you like to give away a Napa Vineyard on your next show? David, you're so funny. No, unless I can get maybe Joel Gott will give away his vineyard next week. Let's see if that'll work. Hashtag probably not. So I need to announce the winner based on their share last week of 2 weeks ago, because we took a break for July 1st, of our conversation with Carl Reif in Niagara. So these folks are going to be getting a couple bottles of Reif Winery from Niagara. And they are Lori and Silvio, who live in Kingston, Ontario. They go under the moniker Voyage Writers. They are travel writers. And they shared last week's video, which was amazing, which is great. So Lori and Sylvia, congratulations. And reach out. I will reach out to you and connect you at prize winner. And guys, I am hopping over now to our Get Smart wine course, a tasting of Chilean wines that have just come out in the LCBO. Cool Valleys, and I'm looking forward to that. So everybody, thank you so much for coming tonight, for being here. If you're watching the replay, thank you for taking the time to do that. I hope to see you next week. It will be 6 p.m. Eastern, Toronto, New York time. Join me here. It'll be Joel Gott Wines from California. We're going to talk about what's going on down there. Okay? Cheers, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.